Today, we will uncover a financial wound that bled on the U.S.-Mexican border for decades, a wound that concealed millions and changed the course of the region's history, impacting politics and crime. The federal government ignored this for decades, turning a blind eye. Many high-ranking officials received regular kickbacks for their silence. The tension on the border was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and the air was saturated with the smell of sulfur, despair, and rust. Local newspapers did not even dare hint at this massive crime, fearing the consequences. The roads leading south were covered not just in dust, but in secrets that state officials would prefer were never revealed. Sheriffs received generous bribes for complete silence and loyalty, ensuring unhindered movement. Every sheriff in the region had their price, and that price was often measured not in gold, but in the gleam of metal refined from coins. It was a very cynical and ruthless system of corruption that encompassed all levels of society. The silver that was supposed to save a national economy was actually funding one of the cruelest secret criminal empires right under the nose of the Texas authorities, transforming over 200 pounds of silver coins into illegal black gold every night. The prison became a financial center for the underground world, providing a stable income to the syndicate. Behind every pound of this metal stood a broken fate, extinguished hope, and an unsolved crime covered up by decades of silence. Contraband flourished due to the lack of proper control and complete impunity. This empire was like a sleeping dragon, awakened by financial hunger and greed. No one suspected such large-scale illegal operations that had been going on for so long. This was not merely smuggling. It was a financial army, hidden by incarcerated artisans, people the system deemed trash and mere labor, but who turned out to be geniuses of the criminal underworld. These people proved their extraordinary ingenuity and genius, working under unbearable conditions. Their prison uniforms concealed a dangerous intellect and skills more valuable than any prison tool. Today, for the first time on this channel, you will see exclusive, highly sensitive facts that will change your perception of the border and history. We will reveal the secret of the La Plata Code, a unique, hidden encryption system on jewelry that allowed the smuggling of over 70% of the contraband silver, the total value of which is estimated to exceed $10 million. The financial losses for the state were simply colossal, damaging the economic stability. This was genuine criminal cryptography, disguised as high art. The secrets of the encryption were carefully protected from outside eyes and inquisitive officials. You will learn about the only prison guard in the camp's history who became a millionaire through this scheme, and we will show pages from his personal diary, where he detailed how, in 9 months, he secretly exported 2,300 ounces of pure silver, hiding it as medical waste. This guard lived a double, unbearable life every day, forced to lie to his family. His diary was as dangerous as a pistol pointed at someone's head. He meticulously described all the details of the criminal scheme so as not to forget any important detail. You will see a reconstruction of the secret furnace where the prisoners melted the coins using only 3 ingredients that no one was looking for. The furnace was a true technological marvel of the underworld, masterfully concealed. These ingredients were so mundane they were ignored during every search. They even used soot from chimneys for camouflage, adding it to the fuel briquettes. If you miss even a minute of this investigation, you will not understand how the real, hidden power on the border works and what happens to your money when the law is asleep. This investigation will completely change your perception of history and the justice system. It is time to see the truth hidden behind the shine. We're starting right now. Many officials were directly involved in this scheme, receiving regular payments. It was a complex, multi-layered pyramid of financial corruption that encompassed all government bodies. Today, We will reveal 5 undeniable pieces of evidence that the shiny silver on the Texas black market was melted down from coins that should have been in the national treasury, not on the wrists of smugglers. Each piece of evidence points to an unprecedented level of corruption penetrating society. Evidence 1. The coins as a catalyst for treason. What is the price of freedom under conditions of total slavery and coercion? This question stood before every prisoner daily, like a cold wall that was impossible to overcome. The answer to this question determined their future life and chances of survival in the brutal system. The price of freedom was higher than any considerations of morality or law. In this prison, behind this barbed wire, it cost exactly as much as a silver coin weighed, and its price was higher than any gold because it offered hope and means for escape or bribery, which was the most valuable commodity. The hope of escape was the only thing keeping them alive, despite the daily abuse. The prison was not just a place of punishment, but a real crucible for criminal enrichment. It was transformed into a factory of illegal money, working for the criminal world. We will reveal exactly how the first silver coin, received as payment for a custom-made item, transformed from a symbol of trade into the catalyst for a criminal empire whose metastases penetrated deep into government bodies, local businesses, and even officials' families, becoming an integral part of their lives. This metastasis of crime spread all the way to the state capitol, controlling financial flows. It was a financial revolution that took place in the most unexpected location, far from public attention. Organizing this network required perfect secrecy and complete obedience based on fear. The silver fever quickly gripped the prison staff, including the administration, who benefited from keeping silent. Many guards voluntarily became accomplices, tempted by quick profits and promises of protection. Their victims were not only state funds, but also human dignity, trampled by crime. This empire functioned like a perfectly tuned clockwork mechanism, where everyone knew their place. Every cog in the system was lubricated with the grease of corruption and the metal of crime. The syndicate had an incredible influence on local politics, ensuring its unhindered activities. This was cold, cynical mathematics of survival in conditions of absolute disenfranchisement, where the only measure of value was the pure ounce of metal, obtained illegally, which gave power over the guards and the ability to dictate their terms. They were able to completely subjugate the surveillance system, exploiting the guards' weaknesses. The jewelers had complete control over their tormentors, which was a paradoxical turn. The incarcerated artisans, mostly Mexican artists and jewelers convicted of petty crimes or illegal border crossing, possessed rare, almost magical metalworking skills that allowed them to create masterpieces of filigree and unique jewelry. The imprisoned jewelers were an indispensable asset to the syndicate, as their skills were unique. Their hands were golden, though chained by the prison system, creating incredible beauty. They could turn crude metal into a work of art, hiding their intent within it. They used ancient, almost forgotten processing techniques that were unavailable to others. Their detention conditions paradoxically facilitated the development of a secret operation, providing them with the necessary time. Their workshop, located in a remote corner of the camp, was a cover for the real operation that unfolded every night. During the day, they created legal items to distract attention and create the appearance of normal work. During the day, they fulfilled official orders. At night, they created criminal capital, working without rest. They worked under constant, albeit lazy, supervision, creating the illusion of lawful labor. The guards often slept on duty due to general laziness and the bribes they received. This was the perfect backdrop for their illegal activities, which flourished in the dark. The guards turned a blind eye to obvious violations, receiving their share of the profits. They were forcibly recruited to produce sophisticated items for the local elite, who sought exclusivity and were willing to pay with silver coins, not questioning the origin. The silver coin was a convenient, anonymous form of payment that allowed them to avoid the attention of the banking system. It was a perfect shadow deal that suited both sides and ensured mutual benefit. None of the buyers wanted to ask unnecessary questions about the origin of the jewelry. Their only payment, their only thread to the outside world, was American silver dollars and Mexican pesos, which came from buyers who did not want to deal with banks avoiding taxes. Tax evasion was a powerful incentive for the elite who sought to save money. The cash flows were completely untraceable within the banking system, which guaranteed anonymity. This created a perfect, closed cycle of black circulation. But these coins had another fatal value that they quickly calculated, having access to precise data on the metal's composition from contraband sources. Access to contraband chemistry provided accurate calculations of metal purity, which was a key factor. One of them, Juan L. Platero, the silversmith, a living legend of the camp and a recognized master of filigree who once worked in Mexico City's jewelry houses, realized. It was one who became the mastermind of the entire operation, its gray cardinal, managing the process. He was an unrivaled organizer and master jeweler, using his experience. The silver from coins minted before 1890, especially Morgan coins and early pesos, was pure, nearly 90% proof, and, most importantly, its origin was impossible to trace, unlike legal raw materials, which require documents and permits that always raise questions. The purity of the metal from the coins was better than legal raw materials, and this gave them an advantage. Juan conducted secret chemical analyses, confirming this using primitive equipment. They realized that the price of silver, as a metal freely traded on the New York Exchange, significantly exceeded its face value as currency, especially when sold on the black market without paying taxes, duties, or supervision. Selling without taxes yielded an incredible percentage of profit that they could share. The actual value of the metal was higher than its nominal value, making the operation extremely profitable. It was a double benefit that they instantly recognized, realizing the full depth of the financial potential hidden in the coins. This was the legalization of a legal metal through state circulation and a pure profit that could be hidden. They were turning state money into personal capital, undermining the financial system. Instead of buying rotten food, low-grade tobacco, or minimal privileges with these coins, they secretly began to hoard them, turning each coin into a criminal share that undermined economic stability. The undermining of the economy was only a side effect of survival, not the main goal. Every hoarded coin was a step towards financial freedom that they dreamed of. They developed a complex system of caches, hiding coins in the walls using bricks that moved with a special press, under a false floor in the workshop that opened only after a sequence of steps, and in wooden toolboxes equipped with complex mechanisms that activated with a specific press and were known only to Juan and his closest assistants. These mechanisms were a true art of escape, created by ingenious masters. The mechanisms were so subtle that a regular search would not detect them, even with careful inspection. The caches perfectly blended in with ordinary household items, not attracting attention. The hideout of Juan, according to Miguel's testimony, could hold up to 500 pounds of silver coins at once, and it was reliably protected from any searches. The structure of the hideout could withstand even strong blows, remaining intact. The coin accounting was done secretly, using markings on the wall disguised as artistic sketches. The accounting system was understood only by Juan and his partners, ensuring complete confidentiality. They created their own internal bookkeeping, where every coin was a unit of criminal capital. To make one large filigree bracelet, which could cost $500 in gold on the black market, only 20 silver dollars were needed. A tenfold markup a clean, untraceable criminal profit that filled the pockets of the scheme's organizers and their patrons. The realization of the products brought super profits every month, ensuring a constant flow of money. The net profit was fantastic, ensuring the rapid enrichment of all participants in the corruption scheme. This illegal profit exceeded all expectations, fueling their greed. This profit ensured not just comfort in incarceration, but the opportunity to buy influence, silence, and, most importantly, information about the guards' movements, including their sleep schedules, shift changes, and family connections. All the weak points of the security were perfectly known to the prisoners, which gave them a strategic advantage. They literally bought the camp schedule, knowing every step of the security and the time of inspection. The guards often sold information for a pack of cigarettes or a coin, demonstrating their low morality. They quickly established internal, brutal rules of exchange. One American Morgan coin was valued at the equivalent of 3 days' labor. This was financial slavery of a new type, where hierarchy was determined by access to the metal and knowledge. This internal market was governed by the laws of the jungle, where only the cunningest survived. No prison hierarchy was so clear and ruthless. The main thing was that no one but the inner circle knew the true value of the raw material. To everyone else, it was simply money. They successfully maintained the illusion of ordinary trade, diverting attention. Silver became their true currency, much more stable than any government one and more reliable than gold. Silver became their hidden currency, their blackmail tool, their only chance to regain control over their lives and perhaps escape. Many of them dreamed of escaping with the money they earned to start a new life. Every strike of the hammer on a coin was an act of sabotage, an act of defiance against the system that enslaved them. They perfected the process, adding secret fluxes obtained from contraband chemistry to the melt to minimize waste and increase the yield of pure metal to 95%, which further increased the profit. Secret fluxes allowed for quick purification of the metal, saving precious time. The composition of the flux was a state secret, known only to Juan, who kept it in his memory. He kept the flux formula in his memory, not trusting it to paper. The entire operation was built on total control and ruthless secrecy, where every prisoner involved in the scheme feared not only the guard but also their partners, who could eliminate them for the slightest suspicion of betrayal. Betrayal was punished by death without any hesitation, ensuring complete loyalty. The discipline was stricter than in any prison, maintaining order among the prisoners. The rules were written in blood, and they were never broken, which ensured the safety of the operation. It was an internal war for survival where trust did not exist, and suspicion was the rule. As the coins accumulated, the need arose to process them. Accumulation created additional logistical problems of incarceration, including the need to conceal them. Every day brought new batches of coins from corrupt buyers, requiring quick processing. The logistical planning was flawless, taking into account all aspects of risk. Even the smallest mistake could cost them their lives, so they were very careful. It was a true criminal logistics implemented in the prison, working like clockwork. Every shift change, every patrol was accounted for in their nightly work schedule. The system resembled a perfectly synchronized machine that worked in the dark. Success depended on the unquestioning obedience of all participants in the scheme, including the corrupt guards. But turning a coin into raw material is only the beginning. How did they create hell in the most secure place, where constant supervision reigned? And how did they hide the smoke and smell of molten silver so that no official would know about the fire of treason burning right in the heart of the camp, under the cover of darkness? This part of their plan was the riskiest and most brilliant, requiring considerable ingenuity. It required engineering genius and absolute fearlessness, bordering on madness. They knew that exposure would lead to their immediate execution. Death at the hands of the guards would be faster than from the loan sharks. Their ingenuity was motivated by fear and greed at the same time. The motivation was sufficient to risk everything they had. This emotional cocktail made them invincible, as they had nothing to lose. The next piece of evidence will open your eyes to the brilliance of their engineering plan and the ingenuity born of desperation. You will see how despair can give birth to masterpieces of engineering thought and unpredictable solutions. They risked everything for the shining metal that was their curse and salvation simultaneously. Silver became both their curse and their salvation, a symbol of their struggle. The lives of the prisoners hung by a thread, but they continued their fatal business, driven by the desire for freedom. Evidence 2. The secret furnace in the laundry. It is a fire that does not warm, but destroys national trust and law, and it burned every night like a ritual sacrifice to the black market under the cover of the usual, boring, constantly humming laundry routine. No one could imagine that the laundry was hiding a real crime that brought millions in profits. The noise of the laundry was a cradle for their crime, muffling all suspicious sounds. The monotony of the washing sounds served as perfect acoustic camouflage for their night operations. Every drop of water dripping from the linen muffled the sound of their hammers. We will show how the incarcerated artists, turned engineers, used their artistic talent and knowledge of chemistry to create an engineering masterpiece, a secret furnace hidden inside a false wall of the camp laundry, using clay briquettes and soot as camouflage. The secret furnace was a true work of art in camouflage, made from improvised materials. The furnace was so concealed that it blended in with the surroundings, not raising any suspicions. Old, unnecessary boards and paint were used to create the false wall, imitating ordinary repairs. It looked like just another old, rusty piece of equipment that everyone was used to ignoring. The biggest challenge was not reaching the melting temperature, but completely, absolutely concealing its consequences: noise, light, heat, and most importantly, smell. Concealing the smell was the most difficult engineering task, requiring constant control of chemical processes. It was a real fight against physics and the sensory organs of the guards. It was necessary to take into account even the slightest vibrations that could betray the furnace's operation, using special shock absorbers. They had to bypass all 5 of the guard senses. The smell of molten metal containing copper and other impurities, the acrid smoke produced by the burning of impurities, and the high temperature radiating outwards were their main enemies, capable of exposing them in an instant and leading to execution. The danger of exposure constantly hung over their heads, making every night unbearable. They knew that exposure meant inevitable and painful death, so they acted with maximum caution. They needed a perfect alibi and a perfect cover. The laundry, which operated around the clock, became their ideal shield, providing constant background noise and heat. The monotony of the laundry work became their reliable curtain. They solved this brilliantly, applying knowledge brought from pre-Columbian metallurgical traditions, mixed with improvised engineering available in the camp. Ancient knowledge helped them solve the modern problem of camouflage. This mix of ancient knowledge and modern improvisations yielded an unexpected result, creating an effective system. The furnace, nicknamed the Fire Dragon, was located directly above the main, intensively used drainage pipe that led outside the camp, which created a natural heat dissipation. The drainage pipe constantly cooled the outer walls, preventing them from heating up. The pipe was constantly filled with hot water, which perfectly masked the heat from the furnace, making it imperceptible. This allowed them to constantly maintain a low temperature on the outer walls of the furnace due to running water and steam coming from the laundry, making suspicion of heating impossible for an outside observer. The temperature regime was critically important for camouflage, maintained with high precision. The drainage system worked as a hidden heat exchanger, utilizing excess heat without unnecessary effort. They installed a double wall for the furnace, filled with damp sand and clay as a perfect insulator, and lined the inner chamber with fire-resistant stones smuggled from a quarry. This engineering construction ensured maximum safety and reliability of operation. Sand and clay created a reliable thermal barrier, protecting against external heating. The smoke was vented through a system of old ventilation shafts that were previously used for drying and disinfecting linen. The old shafts were perfectly adapted for smoke venting, making the process imperceptible. These shafts exited onto the building's roof, away from prying eyes and the usual routes of the guards, which minimized the risk of detection. The shafts themselves were so dirty that no one could notice the additional flow of soot. Each prisoner knew how to use the shafts carefully so as not to betray themselves. They even used special filters made of wet rags for additional cleaning of the smoke from the specific smell. These shafts were already black from years of soot and moisture, so the additional smoke from the melt, which was mixed with water vapor and the smell of soap, did not arouse any suspicion, and on the contrary, seemed like a natural process. The mixture of smoke and steam looked very natural, imitating the ordinary work of the laundry. The smoke seemed like just thick steam from the washing, which was a constant occurrence, not raising questions. To completely neutralize the smell, they added pressed herbs and essential oils smuggled from outside to the fuel, which masked the smell of metal, imitating the smell of fresh linen. The contraband oils were very expensive, but effective for masking the smell. They used lavender and pine oil for masking, creating a pleasant aroma that relaxed the security. The prisoners even joked that the prison smelled more expensive than the officials' homes. This pleasant smell relaxed the vigilance of the security, who were pleased to be nearby. They also used aromatic candles bought with silver coins as additional protection against possible inspections. It was a perfect camouflage. The smell of cleanliness concealed the smell of crime. The engineering solution for concealing the smell was truly brilliant and incredible, automated to perfection. All their actions were aimed at completely neutralizing the risks that could arise. As fuel, they used pressed straw feed, mixed with waste oil from the workshop and bone charcoal, which did not leave a specific smell of wood or coal, and its rapidly decomposing ash mixed with the laundry's regular trash and soap residue, which was regularly removed. The fuel was chosen based on the criterion of minimal smoke, ensuring maximum concealment. Straw feed provided even heat and little smoke, which was ideal for melting. This mixture was surprisingly effective in reaching the required melting temperature for silver. This was the ideal camouflage that no one could detect, even sniffing right next to the furnace. The chemical ingenuity of the prisoners was astonishing, perfected through constant experiments. To provide intense heat and speed up the process, they used primitive bellows made from old leather aprons and bags, driven by a hidden foot mechanism disguised as a wooden ironing board. The extremely quiet mechanism was powered by the prisoners' feet, which did not make any unnecessary noise. The foot mechanism ensured a continuous air supply, but without unnecessary noise, which was critically important. This allowed them to melt up to 10 pounds of silver in one 4-hour, nightly cycle every day, without weekends, creating a stable flow of contraband raw material that was enough to constantly supply the black market. The continuous flow of metal fueled the criminal world, providing it with capital. The night work was exhausting, but it brought huge benefits in the form of pure metal, which gave hope. They were turning the official currency into money for war against the law, right in its den. Every night was a clock of unbearable risk, where even the slightest noise could expose the entire scheme. Every heartbeat felt like a loud drum roll in the complete silence of the night. Two prisoners always stood guard, simulating equipment repair or another wash cycle, diverting attention. They simulated arguments about work to distract the guards from the noise of the melt. Verbal conflicts were part of their diversionary maneuver, creating the illusion of ordinary work. They worked under the monotonous sounds of washing, the screeching of mechanisms, and boiling water, which was the ideal acoustic screen, muffling the sound of tools and the noise of the bellows. The sound of the laundry was their most reliable accomplice, hiding their criminal activity. The laundry became their sound cover, their noise alibi for all-night operations. They even developed a system for quickly dismantling and hiding the furnace, which allowed them to remove all traces of melting in less than 5 minutes, using pre-prepared clay plugs and buckets of water. The quick hiding system was automated to perfection through constant training. The dismantling drills were conducted very quietly and regularly to maintain skills. This was a true engineering magic, born of desperation and the need for survival. Despair often gives rise to amazing engineering solutions that no one expects. The scheme was reliable thanks to flawless logistics and the coordinated work of every team member. How do you think none of the guards who saw this smoke and heard these sounds every day ever questioned the source? Write your most shocking theory in the comments right now. It was truly diabolical ingenuity. Their ingenuity surpassed all the expectations of the authorities, who were too complacent. Some of you may assume how ingenious this concealment was, but you won't believe who was the main patron of this evil, and how he used artistic patterns to yin-CRYPT his contraband, turning beauty into a deadly, invisible code. The main patron was a very high-ranking person who had significant influence. Artistic talent became a deadly weapon in the hands of ingenious prisoners who dreamed of freedom. This was the peak of camouflage, achieved in conditions of complete unfreedom. Evidence 3. The La Plata Silver Language Code. Every bracelet sold was a shot at the financial system secretly, and every pattern was a cipher, hidden behind a sheen of elegance that deceived even the most vigilant collectors and art dealers who considered themselves experts in Mexican filigree. The masters turned silver into encrypted messages that were impossible to uncover without a key. Collectors admired the code without understanding its meaning, considering it merely art. The elite competed for possession of these unique items, demonstrating their status and wealth. Their greed for ethnic art blinded their vigilance. We will reveal how they created a system where a piece of jewelry was not just an ornament for officials' wives, but a contract documentation for the export of weapons, drugs, and even people hidden in innocent details. Silver jewelry became criminal passports and invoices confirming the deals. Each element of the product was part of a criminal contract that had legal force for the syndicate. This communication system was reliable and did not require direct contact between seller and buyer. This cipher, known as the La Plata Code, the Silver Code, was a masterful combination of 3 subtle elements, understood only by black market buyers and their couriers operating undercover. The syndicate had an extensive network of couriers and intermediaries who ensured delivery. The product itself was an encrypted message that was transmitted across the border, bypassing customs control. It was a perfect, untappable communication system. It was so complex that even if discovered without a detailed key, it was impossible to decipher, making it the ideal smuggling tool disguised as art. The secrecy of the code was absolute and uncompromising, guaranteeing the security of operations. The secret lay in microscopic deviations from traditional patterns, which seemed like only artistic style, but carried important information. Each new courier received the key to the code, memorized, and this was their only insurance. The first element, the number of rays on the engraved star or flower, which indicated the weight of the silver embedded in that specific item, as well as its financial value. This element indicated the weight of the precious metal, ensuring the accuracy of financial calculations. Stars and flowers were the main carriers of financial information that only the initiated could read. The masters could change the number of rays in response to fluctuations in exchange prices for the metal. 5 rays meant 5 ounces, 6 meant 10 ounces, and an uneven number of rays could indicate an impurity or a warning about risk. An uneven number of rays was a signal of danger or of low-quality metal. For example, 7 rays meant 7 ounces of the highest quality silver, which guaranteed a high price. This was the actual invoice for the goods, engraved in the metal, which could only be destroyed by melting the item. Destroying the product meant erasing all traces of the criminal operation and losing evidence. The second element, the type of chain weave, the rim pattern, or the clasp shape. Snake weaving meant an order for firearms, Winchester rifles. Quadrilateral meant opium and drugs. Twisted meant human contraband, mostly illegal laborers sold to plantations in Texas and Mexico. The types of chain weaving were secret code words, understood only by criminal partners. Each motif had a criminal meaning that was well known to the syndicate, which ensured quick communication. Any change in the clasp shape signaled a change in price or delivery terms, which was important for logistics. They created a dictionary of criminal terms, engraved in silver. This was a direct order for the next batch that had to be delivered in exchange for silver. These patterns were an imitation of known Mexican motifs, but with a barely noticeable fatal deviation understood only by members of the syndicate. The slight deviation in the pattern was a crucial sign for identifying the goods. The imprisoned jewelers were masters of this criminal imitation, which required considerable skill. The third, most secret element, an invisible inscription applied with a thin, engraved needle on the inner hidden side of the clasp or under the stones. The graphical application of this inscription required perfect vision and extreme precision of movement. This inscription was microscopic. It could not be seen without special magnification devices. A special lens, smuggled inside the camp, was used to read the inscription. To apply it, they used homemade, incredibly thin tools. This inscription, no bigger than a hair, indicated the exact date and location of the transfer of the next batch of goods or money, as well as the name of the corrupt official who was supposed to ensure the security of the deal. It contained all the key coordinates of the meetings necessary for a successful operation. This was the key to the entire logistics of the syndicate and the names of the patrons who provided protection. Without UV light or special magnification, this inscription was invisible. It was detected only with a special chemical liquid that temporarily darkened the engraving. The chemical liquid was another contraband item manufactured in the camp. This liquid was created in a secret laboratory, hidden in the boiler room, using simple ingredients. The inscription served as the final confirmation of the legitimacy of the agreement between criminal partners, ensuring trust. Thanks to this system, by the most modest estimates, they passed over 1,000 kilograms of silver across the border, turning it into criminal capital that financed entire gangs and political campaigns in the region, ensuring their loyalty and cover. Illegal financing changed the balance of local power, making it dependent on criminals. This silver became fuel for the criminal machine that worked nonstop, feeding corruption. The influence of this money was felt in the elections of local officials, who were dependent on the syndicate and its financial support. The influence of these silver monies was felt at all levels of government. Police and customs officers saw only exquisite Mexican souvenirs with artistic value, unaware of their true criminal worth and purpose. Customs officers envied the jewelry they saw on officials' wives. These items were often ordered by the wives and daughters of the very officials who were supposed to fight smuggling, which added incredible irony and double-dealing to the plot. The women of the officials wore evidence of the crime on themselves, unknowingly. They wore the evidence of the crime on themselves, not even suspecting it, which was the most cynical twist. If you really want to know about the biggest crimes in history that remained in the shadows, and see how such small details destroy empires, then you must subscribe to this channel now. We don't just tell stories, we reveal systems and their codes, and you won't want to miss our next sensation. Our investigations reveal hidden historical mechanisms that influence the fates of many people. Our investigations go beyond accepted history, showing its inside out, filled with dark secrets. Every item sold was a financial time bomb, poking the authorities in the face. They had a perfect mechanism that encrypted crime in beauty. This beauty cost the lives of many innocent people who became victims of smuggling and violence. But how did they manage to force a guard who earned $50 a month and had a small hut to risk his life and freedom for scraps of their black profit, turning him into their chief courier, carrying their secrets across the border? Turning the guard into a courier was the most difficult task, but it was successfully accomplished. He was the weakest element of the system, who became the most important thanks to his financial hardship and despair. This is a story about how financial weakness became the strongest lever of influence. The syndicate ruthlessly exploited people's financial hardship to the fullest, without any moral limits. They cleverly took advantage of his personal tragedy, forcing him to work for them. Evidence 4. The Diary of the Millionaire Guard, Archibald Grade. He was supposed to uphold the law, but he became the king of the black market, turning his conscience into silver ingots that shone in his nightmares every night, and his soul slowly decomposed, succumbing to the temptation of despair. Every silver ingot was part of his moral decay that occurred daily. Archibald Grade was a living tragedy of this camp, the embodiment of moral decline and internal conflicts. His life turned into a secret hell that he hid behind a mask of severity. His outward appearance contradicted the internal despair that gnawed at his soul. We are talking about Guard Archibald Grade, a strict and seemingly unwavering veteran with an impeccable reputation who managed the laundry section for 3 fateful years and became the main channel for contraband export. He was the ideal puppet for contraband control, as he had the trust of senior management. His mask of severity was perfect. No one could suspect his double life and the hidden scheme that brought millions. His motive was not pure greed, but deadly despair. His wife was terminally ill with tuberculosis, and the treatment bills were astronomical, leading to the financial collapse of his family. The financial tragedy turned an honest man into a criminal who broke the law. He constantly looked for legal ways to pay off the debt, but did not find them in this cruel economic system. The impossibility of earning money honestly pushed him onto this fatal path, where the only way out was crime. He watched his wife waste away before his eyes, feeling completely helpless. He sought money at any cost to save her, ignoring all moral principles. Grade was threatened with imprisonment and public disgrace due to catastrophic gambling debts, accumulated in attempts to quickly earn money for medicine, which exceeded his annual salary by 20 times. Grade's debts were truly astronomical, simply unaffordable for his modest salary. The debts were to influential and ruthless people who threatened his family with physical violence. They threatened him with kidnapping his children if he didn't return the money. These threats became the final nail in his moral coffin, forcing him to make a decision. This was his Achilles heel, his secret that poisoned him. It was the perfect leverage for the criminal syndicate, which immediately took advantage of the situation. The syndicate saw this weakness and ruthlessly exploited it, offering the impossible but the only salvation. The prisoners, like true predators, learned about his financial weakness through a corrupt local postman who delivered him threatening letters from loan sharks. The postman was a small but important element of corruption who became a key link. The letter demanding debt repayment became the crucial moment in his life, after which he turned to crime. This was the day he finally sold his soul. They offered him a devil's bargain he could not refuse because it was the only way to save his wife. 10% of every kilogram of exported silver, or they would expose his debts to the sheriff, who was his personal enemy and had long dreamed of removing him to take his place. He understood that his reputation would be completely ruined and he would lose everything. He chose between honor and his wife's life, choosing the lesser of two evils, which cost him his peace of mind. We found pages from his personal diary, dated 1898, where he wrote, "Asterisk, I feel like every dollar of this silver sin burns my soul, and I drink more whiskey so as not to hear my wife's voice asking where this money comes from. I feel like the worst criminal among everyone here in this damn place." The bottle of whiskey became his only friend and confessor in this dark business, helping to forget the pain. He tried to drown out the pain of conscience with alcohol, but it only amplified his suffering. Every sip brought temporary oblivion. But I bought my wife medicine, and my children now eat bread. I struggle every day with my conscience and the feeling of guilt that tears me apart from the inside. I sold my soul, but saved my family, justifying myself every day to myself. This justification was his only solace. The price of my salvation is 2,300 ounces of someone else's silver. I cannot live with the realization of my terrible choice, made for love. I cannot look at my reflection in the mirror because I see a criminal there, not a protector of the law. These were the words of a broken man who became an accomplice to a criminal syndicate. His diary contains the names of many corrupt officials who were involved in this scheme. His diary is a chronicle of a slow moral death and self-hatred, written in the blood of his soul. He used his weekly sanitary trips to the city to allegedly supply soap and linen. These sanitary trips were perfectly planned so as not to arouse the suspicion of border guards. These trips were the perfect cover for smuggling, allowing huge volumes of metal to be exported. The routes were always changed to avoid any suspicion that regular movements might cause. He developed the routes himself, avoiding suspicious inspections. His van, marked as fully inspected thanks to bribed stamps and old connections, was stuffed with rolls of clean linen, under which silver ingots were neatly hidden. The silver was transported disguised as clean prison linen, and no one suspected its real value. Border guards did not even look inside the van, trusting his reputation and official documents. He used a false floor created by the prisoners themselves, which made the ingots invisible. The construction of the false floor was truly masterful, hiding the metal from any inspection. These ingots were cast in the shape of soap or brick, lying in wooden boxes. Even the shape of the ingots was part of the careful camouflage to imitate mundane objects. Gray brought the molds himself, using old wooden boxes that were freely available. This was the ideal camouflage, as no border guard or inspector would break a piece of soap. He exported up to 150 pounds of silver monthly, becoming fabulously wealthy on the blood of the disadvantaged, yet his soul rotted. Every month increased his wealth and his curse, which consumed him from within. The wealth did not bring him peace, only more fear and paranoia that he would be exposed. The accumulated money lay as dead weight, bringing no joy, only amplifying his pain. His nights were filled with nightmares of ingots weeping blood. Gray lived in constant fear of exposure. His diary is a chronicle of paranoia and self-hatred. He slept only 4 hours a day, constantly checking the caches. The lack of sleep made him constantly nervous and irritable, which affected his work. He even installed a system of signals, using different colored linen on ropes to warn his accomplices about possible inspections. These linen signals were his last line of defense, which was always prepared. A red towel meant danger, green meant clear, which was known only to select members of the syndicate. His role was critical. Without his official cover, the export of large volumes would have been impossible. The syndicate completely depended on his position, so they paid well for his services. He was the bridge between crime and the outside world, their most valuable asset, ensuring smooth operations. The price of the silver was high, but the price of human error was catastrophic. What happened when the system built on lies, bribery, and fear finally began to crumble, dragging all participants of this fatal, silver deal with it? The collapse of the system was only a matter of time, as such an empire could not exist forever. The end of this story turned out to be much more tragic than expected, but unexpected for all its participants. Evidence 5. The final raid, Silver Ashes. Every crime has its shelf life, and for the gold rush, it came in April 1901, ending with a sudden, brutal end that left only ashes, the smell of disgrace, and millions unrecovered. This fateful date forever went down in the prison's history as the Day of Reckoning. This raid became the final point in the history of the Silver Empire that flourished for 3 years under the nose of the authorities. It was the culmination of all the secrets hidden behind the prison walls, which finally came out. 3 years of absolute criminal domination. Betrayal came from within, as it always does with great empires built on inequality and coercion. Internal conflicts always destroy the most powerful empires, despite their strength. The unfair distribution of profit, which was constant, caused an internal revolt among the junior members of the syndicate. One of the junior artisans, Miguel, nicknamed Phoenix, feeling the unfair distribution of profit, constant threats from one El Platero, and fear of inevitable exposure, decided to save himself by becoming a traitor to survive. Miguel decided to exchange betrayal for his own salvation, risking being caught and killed. His life was worthless in Juan's eyes, and he knew it, which was the reason for his fatal decision. He chose freedom, even at the cost of betraying his comrades in misfortune, having no other choice. He realized he was just a bargaining chip in this big game. He wrote an anonymous, detailed letter to the local sheriff, adding a small but undeniable piece of evidence: a tiny piece of silver melted from a coin, and a clear description of the secret furnace, including its location and the time of the nightly melt. The evidence was so compelling that it could not be ignored, forcing the sheriff to act. The letter was delivered to the sheriff through the town washerwoman who often worked with the camp, ensuring anonymity. The sheriff, despite the corruption, saw a chance to raise his authority and enrich himself with the confiscated silver. This washerwoman was the only person Miguel could trust. His information was so detailed and shocking that the authorities, despite the corruption, could not ignore it. Even corrupt officials were afraid of disclosure and possible federal intervention, which could destroy their careers. They realized that the scandal could cost them not only their positions, but also their freedom. A federal investigation was the only thing they feared most, as it was beyond their control. They decided to act quickly and harshly to prevent panic and scandal. The raid was conducted as quickly and decisively as possible to catch the criminals red-handed. The raid was planned in the strictest secrecy, at night, without the involvement of local police who were not trusted. The final raid took place at dawn, when the artisans had just finished their nightly melt and were exhausted. Special forces broke into the laundry, catching everyone off guard and giving no chance for resistance. This was the time of their greatest vulnerability after a hard night shift, which ensured the success of the operation. The guards acted with unprecedented brutality and determination, trying to destroy all traces of corruption. Their fatigue was their enemy. When the police burst into the laundry, They found only ASH residues and melted fragments of silver coins that they had not managed to melt, which one tried to quickly destroy by throwing them into buckets of water. One tried to destroy all the evidence until the last second, knowing the inevitable and not wanting to leave traces. His resistance was a futile, yet desperate, gesture of farewell to his empire. His last act was an act of sabotage. According to the police, only 30% of the silver that was in the camp at the time was seized. Mostly finished, but not yet exported raw material and tools. This was only a small residue of the total volume, most of which was lost. Most of the criminal capital escaped and dissolved on the black markets, becoming unattainable for the authorities. The remaining 70%, tens of kilograms, had already been exported by grade and other couriers in recent months and disappeared without a trace, dissolving on the black markets of the South and Europe. The investigative department was unable to track this money, despite all efforts. This money financed unknown criminal operations across the country and abroad, creating new problems. The authorities did not make enough effort to find the exported millions, perhaps due to corrupt connections. Guard Grade was found in his cell. Realizing the inevitability of punishment and disgrace, he managed to take poison, hidden in a headache pill that he had worn around his neck for years. Grade chose voluntary death instead of the disgrace of court, so as not to reveal the names of his accomplices. He chose death over disgrace and life imprisonment, unable to withstand the pressure and fear. He died, but his diary, hidden in the wall, remained as a bloody witness to his crime and despair. His posthumous diary became the most valuable evidence that revealed the extent of the corruption. The diary became the only complete testimony to the crime, revealing the names of corrupt officials and their families. His last entry, written in a shaky hand. I do not know who is the greater criminal, me, who stole the silver, or the system, which stole my dignity, leaving me only silver ashes and a curse. This was the end of the gold rush, but not the end of the story. The physical end of the story did not mean its complete conclusion, as the money continued to work. Although the organizers were detained, the main treasure, millions of dollars exported with the La Plata Code, never returned to the treasury. The mysterious millions still remain unrecovered, awaiting their next owner. Some jewelry with the code is still in private collections as a reminder of the crime and its consequences. This is not just a story about money. It is a story about survival that forced men to turn the national currency into a weapon against the system. The silver story became a warning about corruption that society must remember. Silver became a symbol of despair and defiance, a shining proof of human criminal ingenuity, born of necessity. Miguel, who betrayed his own, received a suspended sentence and quickly disappeared in an unknown direction, hiding his fate and avoiding responsibility. The silver from the Texas frontier is not a legend about shining treasures. It is a dramatic and tragic story about how coercion turns people into ingenious criminals and money earned by crime into an eternal curse. The silver curse haunts the families of corrupt officials, bringing them misfortune and troubles. It was a curse that was passed down through generations, affecting their destinies. But what happened to those who escaped the final raid and who exported the camp's main treasure, the silver crown? The export of the crown was the syndicate's most successful operation, bringing the greatest profits. We will reveal where $100 million of this black silver is now in the next part. The Silver Ghost, the legacy of the Texas smugglers, $100 million missing. Follow our new sensational investigations on our channel so you don't miss the truth. Don't let your money or your freedom become the next victim. Click the subscribe button and the bell right now, because only then will you get the truth in the front row. Only a subscription guarantees you access to the truth and a perfect knowledge of history.